folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and as usual, we got another good one for you today. Today, we're actually connecting with Robbie Kroger. You may not know who Robbie is, but he does something really important. He's the chief executive of Blood Origins. And if you're not familiar with Blood Origins, I strongly encourage you to check them out. Basically, what they do, it's a global nonprofit whose mission is to convey the truth about hunting and promote conservation efforts. And they do this by creating content and sharing stories. Obviously, we like stories that basically convey the impact that hunting has on the people and the wildlife in different communities. So they're doing great work, and you should check them out. They make beautiful content, beautiful films. They actually just turned out a film you can't even watch unless you are checking out the special circuits for films. But either way, I want to thank Robbie for coming on the podcast. I know he's a very busy guy, and I really appreciate him taking the time to share his stories. I hope you guys enjoy Robbie's stories. I'm just going to jump straight into this thing, and let's kick it off. Well, let's let Robbie tell you his stories. All right, Robbie, welcome to the Hunt Stories Podcast. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Monday, starting the week off, dealing with admin and emails and whatnots. And
it's
funny, you don't really
whirlwind travel, right? You just shot over to Colorado for a day, basically, and then back to where you're South Africa.
Oh no, somebody actually thought that I did fly, and you're probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
that I flew all the way from South Africa to be in Colorado. Now that would be impressive.
Yeah,
but I didn't.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, where have you been located, Robbie?
I live in Memphis, Tennessee, my man.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I just visited Memphis for the first time a couple months ago.
Cool.
I love it. It's a great town. Everything about that town is phenomenal. We went to the you guys got a really nice shotgun club up there, and we shot some clays, and we went tubing down your rivers, and of course we went downtown. So I got nothing but good things to say. So
had a good time on Beale Street.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah,
we're good. Yeah, so Memphis, Tennessee, and just traveling like crazy right now. It's funny. You just don't get much of you use the weekends. Weekends are when events are happening. So it's a great job running this nonprofit, but you rarely get any downtime. So I've got to purposely say, okay, Sunday, like this Sunday passed. I got back from Colorado late at like 7:00 on Saturday. And I said to my wife, Sunday, I'm not working. She was like, finally.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, Robbie, let's do this real quick. Let's let you introduce yourself to the listeners. For those that don't already know who Robbie Kroger is, introduce who you are and kind of what you do.
Yeah, it's funny. You asked me to introduce myself, and a lot of people won't even know me by my name. And that's important to know because you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Actually, when we first started Blood Origins, you actually never saw me. You might have seen me like once or twice, but that was about it. You heard my voice a lot. And it's funny, I walked around one of the Western Hunting Expo when we were, like 2 years old. And it was awesome. Nobody knew me. And I would sit and talk to someone, and somebody would actually stop and say, "Oh, you're the Blood Origins guy, hey?" And that would freak me out. And they're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I recognize the voice." And so nowadays, obviously being a nonprofit and being on a bigger stage and having a little bit more, dare I say, responsibility in terms of what we say and how we say it, I've had to sort of put my face more out there. And so, yeah, some people may know who I am. My name's Robbie Kroger, originally from South Africa. Have been in Mississippi, now Tennessee for the last 20 years in America. I started a idea, I guess, called Blood Origins, which is this brand, this narrative, this concept, now a nonprofit organization that simply asks to convey the truth about hunting.
Yeah.
And that's all we do every single day. We produce educational, engaging type content around the benefits, the consequences, the impacts of hunting on people, on wildlife, on communities all around the world. And and then just exposing the truth, sort of heart of hunters, the emotional side, the vulnerable side, the sort of transparent, full of integrity side that we often forget about in our community. And so we create that content specifically for non-hunters. We build that content specifically so that they can understand and digest it. And then, when something comes up around hunting or someone says X or Y, you get people able to respond in the digital media world, social media world that we live in, about X and Y. And they're intelligently able to respond. They respond in hopefully a very gentlemanly type fashion, which is the tone that we set. And then more often than not, if they run out of information, they just say, hey, go check out Blood Origins. And so we get tagged into, everything all day long. Jason Momoa's pages, Leo DiCaprio's pages, big nature-based Instagram accounts that all they do really is paid, take 24-hour paid ads. And those ads typically are against hunting. And so we're constantly fighting on that battle too. So a longer-winded introduction to who I am, but I'm simply the executive director of Blood Origins and work every day to think outside the box in terms of creating content to shape a different narrative.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Around the world for hunting.
Yeah, I've been following you guys for a long time. It is great content. I know that I've shared it with non-hunters when they come at me with whatever, XYZ argument that they have. So I appreciate what you do, Robbie. It is really great. And to all the listeners out there, please make sure you check them out. It's, there's a lot of people out there that say they're into conservation and making sure that hunting sticks around forever. I think, Robbie, what you're doing is probably more than most. And it's not just, intermixed with products and things like that. You have your goal and you guys stick to it. So I appreciate that. And so thank you.
Yeah, we don't have any product. Well, we wear stuff, It's not like we run around naked. But we don't belong to anyone. And that's the difference that we set up. We felt like we needed to belong to everyone. And so if a company or product says, well, we need to get X from you, we're like, well, we're not going to give you X. That's not what you're doing it for. You're doing it because you support what we do and the narrative that we're creating out there. That's why you support what we do. You don't support us because you're going to get X exposure or X number of posts or any of that marketing stuff.
Perfect. That's the right way to do it. Let me ask you, Robbie, so how long have you been a hunter?
I became a hunter when I came to the States.
Oh, really? Okay.
My family has a steeped hunting heritage, lots of hunting background in my family. I just never had the opportunity to hunt. I think I would have become a hunter. I would be a hunter if we had lived in a place that hunting was accessible. Gotcha. So my grandparents, Mozambique was a mecca of hunting until 74. Revolution hit Mozambique and it got raped. Today it's really coming back strongly, which is great to see. But growing up as a kid and a teenager, there was no hunting in Mozambique for me. And then I grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa, which is 8.5 million people. It's like being raised in New York or Los Angeles or anything like that. Yeah. And so hunting really wasn't a part of the scene, not in my friend circle, not in anything we talked about. It was more sort of game ranging and ecotourism, phototourism, because that's just a sort of a big thing in South Africa. But no hunting until I came to the States and met a 6'5", 280-pound redneck, and he told me to go.
You wanted kind of rednecks.
You wanted to go hunting, and I said sure. And he gave me I did my hunting education class, and I guess this is a hunting story podcast. So I'll give you the first hunting story, which is essentially my first hunt ever. And I didn't know nothing, I just did my hunter's education class and got really pissed off in the hunter's education class because the game warden that was running the class, it was almost like he had a captive audience of, I was the oldest person in that class by far. I was 26 at the time. Everyone else was kids, like 10, 11, 12, getting their hunter's education with their dad, okay. Right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh. And he just kept telling story after story after story. And I was like, dude, just get on with it.
Yeah.
And he was telling me how the shot distance on, from an archery shot, from a tree stand is going to be shorter than the actual distance longitudinally along the ground. And I'm like,
That is.
I was like,
It's
dude,
important
did
to
you,
know at some point, but not
did you,
hunter edge, right?
no, no, no. In my brain, I'm like, did you forget your math? That the hypotenuse is always the longest line in a 90-degree triangle. There were just things about it just bothered me. Anyway,
Yeah.
we got it done. And so I got my hunter's education license, and I said to Land, I said, I'm ready. Let's go whitetail deer season. He's like, okay, cool. He gave me his semi-automatic 308. Didn't own a gun at the time. Didn't take any practice shots. Didn't do nothing. And he gave me a lawn chair, and he said, okay, I'm gonna walk down this tree line right here. Then there's gonna be like the first track that you get to. You're gonna walk into the track. And when you get there, I think it's already past like any sort of, what's the word, the legal terms of being caught for illegal baiting. And I had no idea at the time. So he says, you're going to see the pile of sweet potatoes on the right. Just keep going, and then sit under a cedar tree and put the launch out. And then when you get ready, ease the bolt forward. Don't slap it forward like an automatic. Just ease it forward. And if something comes by, shoot it.
Simple,
effective. I said, okay. I'm just I don't know I don't know what I'm doing, but okay, sounds good. So off we walk. I've gone to Walmart. I've still got them today. 20 odd years later, I've still got the bibs, the mossy oak bibs that I bought, real thick bibs. And I think I wore every stitch of clothing that I had. It was one of those cold, like Mississippi mornings. If you've never hunted in Mississippi in the winter, it is the coldest place in the world to hunt because it's like 35, 34, 35, 36, but it is damp, super humid, like bone chilling cold. So sitting in a chair is just not like the thing that, it's not comfortable. You're really cold, trying to stay awake, all of the things. And so around like 8:45, 9 o'clock, I haven't seen anything. So I'm like, man, I'm just gonna walk out. And he explained to me that the track goes like across, it goes down the little valley, goes across the dam wall, and you can come out the other side and you can get onto the fields that are on the backside, and then you can walk along. So I just took the gun for a walk essentially, and started walking. And as I got into the big field, I'm just looking around, whatnot, and there's this little dirt track that connects this field that I'm in to the next field. And the dirt track is maybe the sort of the corridor is maybe 100 foot long, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a quarter of the way down the track, and halfway in the track, a buck steps out on the road. And like, now I know what a decent buck looks like. It was a decent buck. It was probably a mid 120s.
Yeah.
Just a really nice, whatever. I couldn't even tell you what it was. 8, 10, whatever it was. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a deer. Okay. The gun is still loaded. So I raise the gun up, put the crosshairs on the shoulder, squeeze the trigger, and all it does is click.
Oh no.
And I'm like, what happened? And that buck on the click lifts its head up, looks at me, and runs away. I'm like, what the heck just happened? Like, what is wrong with this gun? Like, what did I do wrong? Anyway, so I storm into the next field, get to the place. Landon is there. Landon's my mate. And I said, Landon, there's something wrong with this gun. I told him the whole story. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, look, here, nothing. You do it. So he pulls the bolt back, pulls the action back, pulls the bullet out, puts the same bullet back in, releases the action slams close, aims at a tree, pulls the trigger, gun goes off. I'm like, what the heck? What the heck's wrong? And he said, what did you do? Why didn't it go? I said, well, I got down, I sat down. You told me do not make any noise. So that action, all I did was I just like held it and I just like moved it forward till it was closed. And he showed me. And so I did it again. He was like, watch. And he put a bullet in And he eased it forward and pulled the trigger, and it went click. So what I did was, in easing the action forward, I actually had not closed the bolt.
Oh.
And so all I had was about 1 millimeter space between the firing pin and the bullet. And so that was my introduction to hunting. And I guess, it's funny when I take that story and I sort of amplify it across other stories of mine. It almost becomes a common thread in that, I guess in that moment, if I had shot that buck, first hunt ever, shot that buck, I would have been like, is this deer hunting? Okay, cool. This is easy. This is nothing. This is what it's like, right?
Robbie, what's funny is I've heard that sentence on this podcast a bunch of times. It's almost always followed up with, and then I didn't see a deer for 5 years.
Yeah, I have been whitetail hunting now, I would say, 15 years.
Yeah.
I got 2 bucks on the wall.
Better than none.
Yeah, well, that one. And then I've had so many encounters. Like, another story is, so in the same deer hunting season, I'm in Starkville now. I'm a professor. I got access to a really nice piece of private ground, but I'm not allowed to hunt. It's a high fence operation. I'm not allowed to kill anything inside the fence. I can shoot a doe or 2, but more than they've leased the area around the fence, around the property, so I can hunt in the property, but I can hunt that. I'm looking out of the property. And so I remember very distinctly finding like this little food plot area that was in this real beautiful like river bottom, and I didn't think there was any food sources around, and so I built a food plot, and nobody really realized that the food plot was there. And so I just was like going to keep it as like a honey hole. So I kept it as a honey hole, kept it, missed the first muzzleloading season. And so the last muzzleloading season of the year, I was like, all right, I'm going to go to hunt. Well, actually, I didn't miss the first muzzleloading season. I remember now. I didn't miss it. I got it. And I went to the honey hole and I sat down with my muzzleloader. I didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, all right. It was my only chance at that season. So put the muzzleloader up and waited till the next season, which was nearly at the end of the overall season itself. So went back down to this tiny little food plot. And before I went there, the person who sort of gave me permission to hunt there said, hey, do you want to use my muzzleloader? I was like, no. I got mine. Mine's fine. Mine's no problems with mine. And he was like, are you sure? I said, yep, no problems. I got it. So I drove down to my food plot, tucked myself away in a cedar tree. It was a brilliant little food plot and a brilliant like little camo spot. I was just like, you could not see me.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, freaking within an hour of me sitting there, I hear deer come into the food plot. There's a bunch of does. I hear a deer come from my right, and the fence is not but 10 yards from me. And the food plot is then another 10 yards. So these deer are within like 20 yards of me. And out the corner of my eye, I see it's a buck that's come into the food plot, and it is a giant. Like, it's probably 140, 150. It's a monster deer. And I'm like, oh my God, here it is. This is all working out. It's so brilliant. He steps forward into the gap that I have, and he's so close, I can hear him ripping the grass, just like rip. And I'm like, all right, I've got everything ready. I prime it. I pull the hammer back. It's iron sights, which would have made that story would have been amazing. I can see it already, like my muzzle loader, my iron sight, and this monster buck. Line it up, pull the trigger, click.
Robbie.
And he lifts his head like, what was that? And I'm like, just froze. Goes back to eating. I'm like, okay, I've got an opportunity now. So I break the muzzleloader open. I take the cap out, put a new cap in, close it so slightly, pull the hammer back. The guy hasn't even moved. He might have taken one step at like 20 yards. I'm like, all right, this is it again. Here we go. line it up, squeeze the trigger, click, off it goes. It does not go off again.
No.
Then that time the buck was like, I'm out of here, gone. And I'm just kicking myself. I'm kicking myself. And so I get back to camp and the guy was like, what'd you see? I was like, well, I missed the biggest buck twice with my muzzleloader. He says, I told you should have taken my muzzleloader. And I should have, right?
What,
and
so
again,
why would he even suggest to
because
use
because he's one of those guys that just, I've got better equipment than you and, use my stuff,
I was like, if you have one, why was he offering it to you? But I guess I
think maybe he had maybe he had like a premonition of what was going to happen, because the reason why the gun didn't go off this time was because when I loaded the gun at the first muzzle loading season, I didn't unload. I didn't discharge the gun.
Gotcha.
And so I still had, and I guess the gunpowder got wet or whatnot. And yeah, that was that.
Well, you know what? A click is way better than other things that could have happened from double loading up a muzzle loader.
No, it wasn't double loaded. No, I didn't double load. I knew it was loaded. I just left it. It loaded.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So I was just
funny.
like, oh my gosh. So yeah, just a crazy set of events, man. That just have.
I've dabbled with muzzleloader a little bit. In fact, I started hunting in Washington muzzleloader elk. And I remember my buddy one time, we went to the range and, we're sighting in muzzleloaders. They're fun to shoot, pain in the butt to clean. Yep. But he's shooting next to me and he just, boom, fires one off. And he's like, oh, man, like, and he's like holding his chest like it. For some reason, the muzzleloader kicked way harder. And he's like, what the hell just happened? Turns out what he did, and it just made me think of your story a little bit where it was loaded incorrectly. He loaded in the powder, put in the sabot, put it in there, never took the ramrod out.
Oh, jeez.
Right? So it was in the end of the gun when he fired, and that's why it gave that extra kick, because all that extra energy, it hit that and it popped him. And we were like, holy crap, like that could have killed us both. Like there's, either way, he's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk down range and we're going to try and find that ramrod. And I'm like, there's no way we're finding that ramrod. But we waited for, the range to stop, everyone shooting for a ceasefire. Went down and we kind of like pretended like we weren't looking, but we were looking for it, and never saw that ramrod again, man. But fun guns, fun to shoot, but a lot of things can go wrong. In Washington, particularly like the breech plug. You have to have a hole in the breech plug legally to hunt with it, and it's always raining in Washington. So you're just like standing there with your hand over, the breech plug the whole time you're hunting. They're a pain in the butt, but they're fun. They're fun guns.
Yeah, so that's been my sort of storied, with hunting. It just is, if it's almost like if something's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. Yeah. I am not a lucky hunter. That is for sure. Like I know a lot of people that are you're just blessed with it, man.
Yeah.
I think the final story I'll give you is I've done it, and again, it's not surprising to you that it doesn't come out with a happy ending, based on my hunting stories. But I have been interested in killing and shooting a black bear for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so when I was just starting Blood Origins, I was at a QDMA course in South Carolina, and I met a retired Marine. And this retired Marine was setting up a bear operation, a bear baiting operation in Maine. So in Maine, you can bait bears in the fall. Maine also has very strong fruit stocks in the forest. So good strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, like everywhere, right? Wild strawberries. So I was like, he was just starting. I could put a pretty good group together. We all went up there, had an amazing time. 5 days of bear hunting over bait. And in 5 days, it's almost like a gentlemanly type hunt. You get into the stand around 2-3 o'clock, and you sit there until dark, and dark's like 6:37. Okay, so it's a 4 or 5 hour sit. But it's a very, very like still sit. Like you have to, you're 40 yards, 50 yards from the bait bag at any time that bear can show up. Like you drop your head and go to sleep, and within 2 seconds, you don't even realize and the bait bag's gone and the bear's gone and you missed it kind of scenario. So you're constantly being vigilant. You're constantly not like squirming around in your seat. Some of the sites had stands on the ground, so you're like in amongst roots, and so for 5 days that year, I sat 5 hours, 6 hours at a time, did not see a bear. 0 bears, and like 3 bears got shot that night and that week in camp. But he's got a great bear area, so I was like, it's just had a great week. Let's do it again next year.
Yeah.
So the next year we come back, same scenario, different sites, different blinds, and you sit the same blind like 3 nights in a row, and then if you haven't seen anything, they'll swap you out for the last 2 kind of scenario. And so same again, day 1, day 2, day 3, haven't seen a bear. Swap stands. Day 4, I don't see a bear. Day 4, the person who then occupied my previous stand kills a bear on that stand. Of course. Day 5, I see a cub bear. And you can tell it's a cub because where the bait bag is, he gives you sort of a frame of reference, like it's 6 foot to grab the bag, right? So if a bear can just barely grab the bag with its paws, it's a tiny bear. And so I see this cub. I'm like, man, this is like day 10 already. And this is the first bear I've seen. I am not killing a cub, even though I know it's legal and I can. And, it's probably an 80-pound bear.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. So come off the stand. I said, you see something? I said, yeah, I saw a bear, but I'm not going to kill a small bear. So that was year 2 down. Year 3, I skipped a year. Then I came back. Year 3, same scenario. Started day 1, didn't see a bear. Day 2, saw 2 bears. Happened to be 2 cubs. And I'm like, this can't happen again. This cannot happen again. So we come in at day 2, and I'm just like, man, I'm sitting at, 12 days. I'm sitting at probably 60, 70 hours in a stand already, in total. And I had one of my cinematographers up there with me. We were doing a bit of filming. And one of the people in camp found out that Jesse was a former Marine. And they're like, oh, man, would you like to bear hunt? And Jesse, I don't have the money for a bear tag. And he's like, no, don't worry. I'll pay for your bear tag. And Jesse's like, oh, that's amazing. And so Jesse has nothing. He has no camo.
Yeah.
He's got a plaid shirt. He's got jeans. He's got a cowboy hat. This guy who gave him the bear tag actually killed the first day. And he was using a Sharps rifle, the old school hexagon. It's what, old Plains, Boone and Crockett kind of sharp gun that was used.
Yeah.
So he says, you want to use my Sharps? And Jesse's a military gun. He's like, oh, absolutely. So Jesse takes a couple of practice rounds. The next day we wake up, we're all going hunting again. 12 o'clock, Jesse's practicing with the Sharps. Pretty decent. And we all disappear hunting. I don't see a bear that day. I don't see a bear the entire week. But Jesse in just normal cowboy boots, jeans, plaid shirt, cowboy hat, gun that he's been given, climbs in the stand, sits down. Within 30 minutes, a bear shows up, tries to climb in his stand. And as the bear is turning around and walking away, Jesse shoots it. And he's like, he gets it back to the road, tells the outfitter, come get him. And they are just chuckling because they are like, Robbie is going to be so pissed.
I bet.
And so then there's the running joke now. It's like, I must be doing something in the stands. I must be like, they even accused me of like doing social media because I had a bunch of scheduled posts. And he was like, I saw you posted. Like, what were you doing posting out of the stand? I was like, that wasn't me. That was scheduled. That was Facebook scheduling that post out. But yeah, I still have not seen a mature bear, and I have not killed a mature bear.
Are you going back again this year?
No, I'm never going back to Maine. I am never going to hunt bears in Maine. I told everyone, I said, I'm going to go to Alberta or Saskatchewan or something like that first, where I can
Yeah.
see 12 bears a day. And I'm going to pick a big one, and that's it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard of black bears just not showing up because of like other bears moving in, like grizzlies and stuff, up in
No
Alberta and places
grizzlies in
like that.
Maine.
That's what I was thinking. Is there any reason or rhyme behind your bad luck there, that or it's just sheer bad bear luck?
Just my nemesis, man. Black
That's
bears
funny.
in Maine is like my nemesis.
Well, here's
So,
a question then: would you rather have seen a big bear and try and shoot it, and your gun misfire, or just not see the bear like
that's
you have?
probably what would have happened.
Yeah, right.
Knowing my luck is that something big would have come and I would have misfired, or I would have, hit a branch, or I don't know, something
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah, that's pretty good, Robbie. That's pretty good. Well, I mean, I feel bad for you. Maybe someday I'll help get you on a bear. I'm
A
planning
lot
on
of
doing some
people are
Canadian
trying
bear
to.
hunts here soon. So
Yeah, I need to. So yeah, unfortunately today I don't, I fight for hunting every single day. I just don't get to do it as much as I used to.
yeah,
So I'm trying to change it. I'm trying to get more balance back in my life. But yeah, we'll see.
yeah. Well, I know that those are the stories you had for us. Do you want to tell maybe one more about one of the two deers you've put down, or you just want to leave us letting everyone know that you might be the most unlucky hunter out there?
Yeah, the whitetail deer that I've had the pleasure of taking, the bucks is the first one I took is in the southeast, or probably across most of the whitetail range. Quality deer management is a big thing, right?
Yeah,
And so when you get invited to these really nice private places, they have strict regulations, strict rules about like what you can kill and what you can't kill. And so I'd been coming to this place in Mississippi for probably 4 years. And every time I came, I very much was like covered up in deer, really good deer.
yeah,
But I could never, I never trusted myself to say, okay, this one is 4.5 versus this one being 3.5. Because if you killed a 3.5-year-old deer, male deer, and it scored 130, 140, you were not getting invited back.
yeah,
And so it was very much I saw hundreds of deer, dozens of really good deer,
yeah.
a couple right under the stand. And it's just like, are you old enough? And if you have to ask the question and it makes you pause, then you're not going to take the shot, because it's just not worth not getting invited again.
Yeah. That's an interesting dilemma. I've never even thought about that.
Yeah, it's just yeah, it's just, I guess it's etiquette, right? It's just it's you respect the rules, and if you don't respect the rules, you're out.
Of course.
And so
I have no ability to age a deer on the hoof. Like I'd be right there with you, Robbie, being like, I don't know. I don't know.
You've just got to essentially be sure that it's an old deer. And so I think this is like year 4 we had been going, and this year they allowed me to shoot a doe. So I shot a doe like the first afternoon I was there, and then I was after that 4.5-year-old plus buck, and just same scenario. Didn't really put much. I was going to just be very, very cautious about what I was doing. And one day I just decided, one of the stands, I was like, man, there's no point in me just sitting. We came in after a morning hunt. We came in at like 9 o'clock, had breakfast. And at like noon, typically you'd only go out at like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At noon, I just was like, I want to go out. And I picked the stand that I wanted. And it was a ground blind, and got in the ground blind at like noonish. And it was one of those that, it's the way that I like to deer hunt is I can't look at a food plot constantly all the time. Yeah. So I'll look at a food plot and I'll have a book with me, and then I'll put my head down and I'll read like a page of the book, and then I'll raise my head up and look around, read another page, raise my head up, look around, kind of scenario. That's how I like to hunt.
Yeah.
And about an hour into the sit, and I was planning to sit there, till dark. So it was going to be a long 6 hour, 7 hour sit. Well, no, would get dark around 5:30, so it's probably 5.5 hour sit. And at like 1:30, it was one of those, like, I just lifted my head and holy shit, there's a buck in the plot looking at me. I'm like, holy smokes. And obviously you buck fever and everything just goes haywire. Your breathing goes crazy. And I'm not even ready. Like, I don't have the window open. I don't have my gun out. I don't have nothing. And so first and foremost, I just need to check, is he old enough? But he looks old enough. Like, immediately, I can just tell there's something different about the deer.
Yeah, bigger body, maybe a little gray fur.
No, just a little like sway back. His back sway. He's got a bit of a belly on him. He's got a little bit of a brisket on him. Like, the front of in front of his legs just looked like it was just like this big paunch kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And then when I raised my binoculars up to him, what I noticed immediately was what I term these, like, they're called knurls, which is like the deer have, like, it has like little dots, like little growths all over the bottom of the actual antlers. And I don't know if it's fact or not, but I started noticing the older the age class of deer, the more like pronounced those knurls were, essentially.
Okay. Huh.
So a young deer doesn't have like all this, it's almost like little bumps near the base of its horn.
Yeah.
And this deer had a lot of them. I was like, holy smokes, you're old enough. You are old enough. And I literally like opened the window, got the gun out, and he's now already like getting nervous. He's starting to get nervous. And I just like centered it. And as I was ready to pull the trigger, he took one step and I moved and pulled the trigger with him. And in the moment, I was like, oh shit, did I miss?
Oh no.
And then I looked and he was like just out straight away, just down, dead.
Perfect.
Right away.
That's amazing.
And it was just like, holy smokes, checked in with my friend. And then it was pretty much, I had to wait there till dark because you're not allowed to move. You're not allowed to move around the property.
Oh, interesting.
Because everyone else is hunting.
Uh-huh.
And so I just waited, a couple, 30 minutes to make sure he wasn't moving. And then walked out there and spent, 3 or 4 hours with him and started reading my book and waited until dark. Waited till dark so my buddy could come and then take real photographs, and we took him back. And he aged out at 5.5 years old. And
that was my next question. That's awesome. Well,
5.5,
man.
and it was perfect. It was my first deer ever. And he's Euro mounted out here in my office.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what did he end up scoring, or have you scored him?
Yeah, I think it was like 128, 129 or something.
It's a good deer.
Perfect deer for me. I'm not a big score guy. I like really old animals.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted.
Perfect, man. Well, I'm glad to end this on a high note. I was rooting for you the whole time, Robbie, but you just kept clicking your gun. So
that's it.
That was fun, man. Thank you so much. I know that we have limited time here. So why don't we wrap this thing up? Unless you do want to tell stories, I always tell everyone I'm not going to stop you if you want to tell more, if anything popped in your head. But if not, why don't you tell people a little bit more about Blood Origins, where they can find you? I'll make sure to put links to everything in the show notes. And of course, mention Lionheart as well, because I know you just released that.
Yeah, so Blood Origins, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. If you feel like giving and supporting what we do every single day, we have a supporter program that you can join. Cost to the tune of a cost of a cup of coffee a month, $3 a month, $4 a month, $5 a month, whatever you want to give. You get entered into a bunch of giveaways. July, you've just missed out on it. July is our big supporters drive where we gave away a gun, ammunition, a bunch of Leopold stuff, and a cow elk hunt in Colorado. But every month we're giving away stuff. We're sending you discount codes, just thanking you for supporting us. If you have a business, we have a conservation club that you can donate as little as $25 a month, all the way up to however much you want to give. And that is a tax-deductible donation against your business. And that supports us doing what we do every single day. And the stuff that we do every single day is content. And one of the biggest pieces of content that we have created to date is Lionheart, which is a documentary about lion houndsmen in the West. We did a premiere in Colorado. That's where I was flying home from. And went very well. Small little town, 2,000 people in the town. We had 250 people show up. The venue could only hold 300. So very happy with that. but nobody can see it now, unfortunately. Lionheart will be on the film festival circuit for the next year or so, and then it'll be in person in venues around the country as we start lining them up and booking cinemas and booking theaters and festivals and whatnot. So
awesome. Well, I'll make sure to pay attention to that so that when people can go and see it, I can share it with everyone. But Robbie, thank you so much, man. This was a lot of fun. It had a lot of fun stories, not necessarily the successful stories, but you have a good sense of humor about it.
Yeah, not very exciting. I'm not the most exciting hunter. But and I'm trying to get back to my roots and hunt a little bit more with my kids.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And you know what's funny, Robbie? I don't know if you've listened to many of my episodes at all, but more often than not, people tell the stories of the deer that got away. So this fits in just fine with the majority of the stories that we hear on this podcast. So thank you again.
Easy. You're welcome.
I appreciate your time, and let's stay in touch so that we can make sure to share what you're doing with all of my listeners. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike.
All right, guys, that's it. Another couple stories in the books. Again, Robbie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. I know you're a very busy guy doing a lot of good work, and so I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and share some stories with me. I know that they resonated with me, reminded me a lot of the hunting experiences that I've had personally. So thank you again. To you listeners, first and foremost, get out there and follow Blood Origins. Check out what they're doing. Support them however you can. It's awesome stuff. I can't recommend it enough. You've probably actually already seen it and just didn't realize what it was. But please do check it out. Beyond that, make sure you're sharing the podcast with at least one person today so that we have more people reaching out to us and asking to share their stories, because that's the only way we're going to grow and the only way the craziest we've been hearing. So that's it, guys. Thank you again. I appreciate all of you. One more thing. Go out there and review us on your preferred podcast thing, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever. Give us a 5-star review if you think we deserve it. Now, that's it, guys. Get out there and, make some stories of your own. Thank you.